AITA for unleashing my concerns about my brother's fiancé, getting my jaw remodeled at their engagement party, and now he's crawling back realizing she was a master manipulator? Seriously long, might need a comfort blanket. Throw away Varialandiver because the sheer depth of this familial and romantic catastrophe is something I'm still trying to process, let alone broadcast to my actual social circle. So, yeah, the title is a mouthful, a tangled mess of sibling dynamics, romantic delusion on a grand scale, and the bitter, lingering taste of being right when you desperately wished you weren't. I'm Owen, now a slightly more cynical 33M, this whole saga has aged me in dog years, and my older brother, Caleb, is a steadfastly stubborn 36M. Our relationship has always been functional. We navigated childhood squabbles, showed up for the obligatory family milestones, maybe shared a perfunctory beer during holidays, but we weren't exactly the type to finish each other's sentences or share deep, dark secrets. We carved out our own separate orbits, maintained our own distinct constellations of friends. That is, until Bianca supernovaed into Caleb's life, dragging us all into her chaotic gravitational pull. Caleb, bless his frugal heart, had been diligently squirreling away every spare penny for years, dreaming of the day he could finally slap down a down payment on a modest little house with a decent backyard. $30,000. That was his Everest, a testament to his unwavering discipline and long-term planning. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, Bianca materialized. She was a spectacle. Dripping in designer knockoffs that she probably passed off as genuine, regaling us with tales of exotic, and likely heavily filtered, vacations, and generally exuding an aura of someone who believed they were perpetually owed the VIP treatment. It was a jarring contrast to Caleb's down-to-earth sensibility, like a peacock suddenly strutting into a pigeon coop. My internal alarm bells started clanging the moment Bianca started showing an intense interest in Caleb, right around the time he finally crossed that $30,000 savings threshold. It felt too convenient, too perfectly timed. Then came the overheard phone calls. I remember one particularly awkward family barbecue where Bianca retreated to the patio, her voice a hushed, conspiratorial whisper. I happened to be grabbing another beer and caught snippets of her conversation, something about riding the crypto wave and a guaranteed moonshot. The way she spoke, the furtive glances around, the almost predatory tone, it just felt deeply unsettling. A few days later, I overheard another call. This time she was pressuring someone, her voice laced with urgency, about a can't-miss investment opportunity and mentioning needing a substantial influx of capital imminently. The whole thing reeked of desperation and a get-rich-quick scheme, with Caleb's meticulously accumulated savings squarely in the crosshairs. Now, I'm no Warren Buffett, but I've navigated enough dodgy situations in my life to recognize a con when I see one. Bianca's sudden, intense focus on Caleb's finances, coupled with these clandestine, money-grubbing phone calls, painted a picture that was anything but romantic. My gut was screaming a five-alarm fire. So, like the eternally concerned, and apparently eternally ignored, younger sibling, I tried to intervene. I cornered Caleb one afternoon, away from Bianca's ever-present orbit, and gently voiced my growing unease. I didn't launch into accusations. I simply shared my observations and suggested he exercise caution. I framed it as brotherly concern, a heads-up from someone who cared about his financial well-being. His reaction was volcanic. He erupted, accusing me of being a jealous, miserable little brother who couldn't stand to see him happy. He launched into a tirade about how I didn't understand Bianca, how she was the light of his life, his soulmate, and that I should just swallow my bitterness and celebrate his newfound happiness. He completely dismissed my carefully articulated concerns, painting me as some pathetic saboteur trying to derail his perfect romance. The conversation ended with him storming off, leaving a palpable chill in the already strained air between us. Fast forward to their engagement party, a gaudy, over-the-top affair that screamed, someone else is paying for this. It was the antithesis of anything Caleb would have ever envisioned for such an event. Bianca was the radiant center, dripping in what I suspected were rented jewels and basking in the effusive congratulations, her enormous, and likely financed, engagement ring catching the light like a beacon of questionable taste. The whole spectacle felt artificial, a carefully orchestrated performance for an unseen audience. Despite the icy silence between Caleb and me, a stubborn sense of familial duty, coupled with a persistent, nagging feeling that I had to say something, compelled me to try one last time. I managed to pull Caleb aside, maneuvering him away from Bianca's watchful gaze and the throng of well-wishers. I tried to appeal to his logic, to gently reiterate my concerns, perhaps with a little more urgency this time, my frustration finally bubbling to the surface. I might have even muttered something about her being more interested in his bank account than his well-being. That was the catalyst. The last straw. Caleb's face, already flushed with celebratory champagne, contorted with pure, unadulterated rage. He unleashed a torrent of insults, dredging up petty grievances from our childhood, and then, in a moment that still makes my jaw ache in phantom pain, he punched me. Hard. Right there in front of half our extended family, Bianca's smug entourage, and a bewildered caterer holding a tray of mini quiches. The celebratory chatter in the room died an immediate death, replaced by a stunned, horrified silence. My cheek throbbed, my vision swam, and the look of utter betrayal and incandescent fury in my brother's eyes was a wound far deeper than the physical blow. Bianca, ever the dramatic actress, clutched Caleb's arm, feigning shock and distress. Caleb, still seething, pointed a trembling finger towards the door and told me, in no uncertain terms, to get out and never darken his doorstep again. And just like that, I was exiled. The wedding invitations arrived a few weeks later, addressed to the family, conspicuously omitting my name. Our parents, caught in the agonizing crossfire, tried to play the role of mediators, but their efforts were half-hearted, their allegiance ultimately lying with their engaged, and soon-to-be-married, son. The following months were a lonely expanse. I felt ostracized, punished for trying to protect the very person who had just rearranged my facial features. Then, a few weeks ago, my phone rang. The caller ID displayed Caleb's name. My initial reaction was a surge of adrenaline, a flashback to the stinging impact of his fist. I almost hung up, the bitterness still a tangible presence in my gut. But something in the persistent ringing, a desperate quality I couldn't quite decipher, made me hesitantly answer. The voice on the other end was a broken whisper. Owen? It's me. The bravado, the unwavering certainty I had witnessed at the engagement party, was completely gone, replaced by a raw vulnerability that was unsettlingly unfamiliar. What followed was a disjointed, almost incoherent confession, a desperate unraveling of the carefully constructed fairy tale he had so vehemently defended. Apparently, the picture-perfect life plastered across social media had been a meticulously crafted illusion. Caleb had started noticing discrepancies, those nagging little inconsistencies that erode trust like termites. Bianca's whereabouts became increasingly vague, her explanations riddled with holes. He'd stumbled upon cryptic text messages on her phone, late-night exchanges filled with coded language and suspicious emojis. And then, the dam finally broke. He had discovered the affair. A months-long entanglement with some high-flying investor she had met through her networking. The same investments that had always felt like a thinly veiled excuse for her exorbitant spending. But the betrayal went even deeper, twisting the knife in a way I hadn't even imagined. Remember that $30,000, Caleb's hard-won down payment? Bianca had spun a heart-wrenching tale about her mother facing a sudden, life-threatening medical emergency, requiring immediate and costly surgery. Caleb, ever the compassionate and trusting soul, had emptied his savings account without a second thought. Turns out, there was no ailing mother, no urgent operation. It was a fabrication, a cruel manipulation to gain access to his funds. And now, predictably, she was refusing to return it, claiming it was tied up in some lucrative venture she had undertaken on his behalf, which, knowing Bianca, likely meant funding her extravagant lifestyle or her Ponzi-adjacent crypto schemes. As Caleb's fragmented confession poured out, a wave of conflicting emotions washed over me. A bitter sense of vindication warred with a genuine pang of sympathy for my brother's shattered naivete. Every single red flag I had desperately tried to point out had turned out to be a glaring, neon-lit warning sign that he had stubbornly ignored. The shady phone calls, the insatiable need for money, the overall air of deceit, I had seen it all, and he had called me a jealous fool. The silence that stretched between us after his confession was thick with unspoken regrets and the weight of his shattered illusions. Then, finally, the dam of his pride broke. He choked out an apology, raw and laced with shame. Owen. I'm so incredibly sorry. You were right. About everything. I was a complete idiot. I should have listened to you. He went on to articulate the depth of his betrayal, the crushing weight of his foolishness. He had placed his trust in a mirage, had thrown away his financial security on a lie, and in the process, had severed his relationship with his own brother, the one person who had seen through the charade. He finally acknowledged that my warnings hadn't stemmed from envy, but from genuine brotherly concern. Since that initial, gut-wrenching phone call, Caleb and I have had several more conversations. He has, thankfully, kicked Bianca to the curb. The divorce proceedings are shaping up to be a messy affair, particularly with the contentious issue of the missing $30,000. He is, understandably, devastated, not just by the financial devastation, but by the profound realization that the woman he had envisioned spending his life with was a master manipulator, a skilled architect of deceit. He has been leaning heavily on our parents, and to their credit, they have finally acknowledged the validity of my earlier concerns, offering their own belated apologies for their skepticism. It's a strange, almost surreal dynamic. This painful, destructive event has somehow forced us all to confront the cracks in our familial foundation and attempt to rebuild on more honest ground. Caleb hasn't explicitly asked for my forgiveness, not in so many words. And honestly, the memory of that punch, the months of being ostracized, still casts a long shadow. But beneath the lingering resentment, there's a genuine part of me that feels heartbroken for him. He is hurting deeply, and he is finally facing a harsh truth that I had desperately tried to help him avoid. He has started peppering me with questions about those overheard phone calls, desperately trying to piece together the intricate tapestry of Bianca's lies. He is consumed by anger, a righteous fury directed at the woman who so thoroughly deceived him. He is also deeply, profoundly embarrassed by his own gullibility and the way he treated me. I don't have a crystal ball to predict the future of my relationship with Caleb. The bond between us has been severely tested, stretched to its absolute limit. It will require time, immense patience, and a genuine effort from both sides to even begin to mend the fractures. But there is a fragile seed of hope within me, a quiet yearning that this shared trauma, this brutal lesson learned, can somehow pave the way for a stronger, more honest connection in the long run. He is finally beginning to understand that family, even the sometimes annoying younger brother, often operates from a place of genuine care, even when their warnings are unwelcome. It's a bitter, painful realization for him, and witnessing his raw vulnerability is far from the triumphant "I told you so" moment I might have once imagined. Seeing my older brother this broken is undeniably tough. If you made it this far, you obviously liked the video, so please subscribe to help the channel.